I'm looking at my goals and I'm saying, okay, where are we putting forth effort to hit these goals? Every day I'll look at that.
Sometimes when you plan too far in advance and you don't hit that, you're kind of like let down. So if you have like weekly goals that you're like, okay, this is definitely attainable, then it just helps you mentally. What's up, guys? Welcome to the On Track with Annie podcast, which is formerly the Annie Tinson podcast, which is all about going after what you truly want in life and is an amazing self-help podcast. Today's guest is Jacob Spotswood. Jacob is an NCAA All-American track and field athlete and pole vaulter. He has earned a two-time NCAA All-American championship trophy, an All-SEC, two-time All-ACC, six-time school record holder, three-time team conference champion, and COSITA academic All-American champion. He makes a ton of videos about what it's like figuring out what you want to do in your 20s and kind of living life in your 20s, which is super interesting. So I think it will help a lot of you guys. So stay tuned for this week's episode, and I can't wait for you guys to listen to it. Make sure you like and subscribe so that you can follow along for more. Hey, Jacob, how are you?
How's it going, Annie? Doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Where are you right now?
Let me show you actually.
Okay. Oh, look at that.
Virginia Tech football stadium.
All right, you got a good view right there.
Yeah. So I'm working with one of the collectives in town for a few months before I move up to DC, and we're still working on getting the office finished. So we're working up in the suites up here, but it's a good view.
Awesome.
Gets the brain moving.
Have you been busy this summer so far?
Yeah, it's been pretty busy. Graduated in June, closed out the season.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Spent a little bit of time at home and then just working and training.
Awesome. But, yeah. So I gave you a nice little intro already, so we'll get right into it. But one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on is because we have a relation with track and field. I ran track in college as well. I did pole vaulting for a little bit too. And
there we go.
This podcast is all about kind of going after what you want in life and kind of achieving what you want. And I know that your content is focused on that. You talk a lot about like figuring out what to do in your 20s and stuff like that. So that's kind of something that I can relate to. So the first thing I want to talk about is kind of how you got started in your athletic career.
Yeah. So, I mean, in athletics, it was, from the time I was 2-3 years old, however old you can, start playing with your older brothers and things like that. So I was always playing some kind of sport, always doing something. And then once I think it was 7th grade, I just saw some people pole vaulting at the local high school. And I was adrenaline junkie. I was like, oh my gosh, I have to try this.
Like I want to fly.
Yeah, exactly. So I started pole vaulting in 7th grade, and I was playing all kinds of sports like throughout. In high school, it was basketball, track, diving for a little bit, and then decided to focus in on track and field. I think it was about senior year. I really decided to focus in. My marks just jumped up in all the events I was doing. Did a decathlon, did pretty well. Got recruited very late, and but ended up landing a scholarship. Went to the University of Alabama. 4 years there, had some eligibility left, and decided to take it to Virginia Tech, do grad school up here, and it has paid off. It's been great.
So talk to me a little bit about your season, because I know previously, pull up your stats. You were two-time NCAA All-American, All-SEC, two-time All-ACC, six-time school record holder, three-time team conference champion, and COSITA, which I'm not sure what that is, but academic All-American.
Did your research? How about that?
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what your training looks like in track and field.
Yeah. So back in college, it was the decathlon, heptathlon, and that was just, trying to touch every single event once a week and be the decathlon. It's 10 events. So you're just trying to cram everything in, basically 2 events a day in training. And it was intense. It was hard, and then coming in towards the end of my collegiate career, I had this big leg ankle injury that it pulled me out for the rest of the season, halfway through outdoor. Had to get surgery. There were 4 breaks in my leg and ankle. This was in a long jump accident. Ruptured all the ligaments on the front end and some others, dislocated 2 tendons in there. So from last spring, all through summer, and then the rest of fall basically was just rehab and slowly coming back. So it was rehab daily, stacked on with all the training I was doing. And then obviously you got school and everything else you're trying to do on the side as well. So doing all that and then slowly easing back into season this past year, and was able to come back and compete at close to my level that I was at prior to the injury. And now we're shifting focus to just pole vaulting, just kind of seeing how high I can jump. So right now I'm kind of in a downtime in the off season. So doing 4 days a week, recovery day on Wednesday with, sauna, ice bath, rehab, and stuff like that. And then weekends off. So I just get my body moving a little bit. But other than that, lifting twice a week, sprinting twice a week, a little bit of gymnastics, all that good stuff. But
Okay, when you say gymnastics, what do you mean by that? What do you do?
man, we go up, we get on the high bar. It's a lot of pole vault simulation drills, basically. So it's a lot of, just hanging on the bar. I call it bukas, swinging upside down. Basically, it's like a full body thing, like getting your core, your lats, your shoulders, arms, everything involved. So a lot of like simulating that swing upside down in the pole vault and then getting back on the pole. There's some, windshield wipers, toe to bar, just your normal high bar core stuff. And then some people do the giants, like, the giants which swing all the way around.
Yeah.
I still can't figure it out. I've only tried it a couple times.
It is so hard.
It's insane. It's wild.
Yeah. And then your wrists are like done. So I don't know how people do it.
Yeah. I like rope climb. Rope climb is one of my favorite.
To get the grip down and everything like that.
Yeah, exactly. So you used to pole vault. Did y'all do any of that high bar stuff? Any of that?
No, we didn't do. So I was mostly runner. I ran the 800, the mile, and the 5K mainly. So that was kind of like the main thing. The pole vaulting I dabbled in for like, I don't know, 3 months maybe. And then I was like, this is not for me. I want to focus on the running. But we didn't even really, like, I had to lift on my own because we did it a little bit in college, but it wasn't to the extent I think as it is like now. I think the last like 2 or 3 years, people have really learned about the importance of it. So what does your lifting look like when you go into the weight room?
Lifting. So right now I'm doing twice a week. And have you heard of the conjugate method, like the West Side Barbell, how they train their athletes, things like that?
No, tell me about that.
So there's one day where it's like you're going really heavy. It's kind of system overload. So one day I'll do that. And then the next day in the week, I'll do an explosive dynamic day.
Okay.
So say my core lifts on the heavy day are heavy power clean or hang clean or clean pull, and then pair it with a heavy pitch shark squat or deep squat or something like that, upper body circuit, heavy core. And then later in the week, it'll be explosive movements. So moving the bar really fast. I like to do snatches and hang cleans for that. So just lighter weight, dynamic, really quick movements. Same in the squat, lighter weight, just move the bar as fast as I can. And then same on the upper body, some explosive chest movements, some bench and things like that. But I've recently been going a lot heavier on the core. So just treating it like basically like a bicep curl, like just really trying to get it deep and get it strong. Because a lot of what I've done in the past is just, the basic time under tension or more slower stuff. But
I think people get lazy with core. They're like, I'll just wait until it burns. But in reality, you're right. Like you do have to train it like any other muscle. Like you got to go down, squeeze, really focus on each rep, just how you would with a leg extension or a bicep curl, like what you said. So it's true. And core strength is huge when it comes to pole vaulting and just running in general. And I think a lot of people still have a misconception about lifting heavy and running and being like they're like, what's the balance between that? So you said you only do twice a week. But on those twice a week days, do you do like max out days where you lift as heavy as you can for 2 reps?
Yeah, right now I've been slowly decreasing the weight depending on the cycle. Like if I'm later in the cycle, or decreasing the reps. So yesterday when I lifted, it was 4 sets of 3, worked up to about 235 on clean. So nothing crazy, nothing like I'm killing myself. Because right now the 4 days a week is more of, let's give my body a second. Like I took a full week off after the season and then shifted into now 4 days a week, just giving my body a little bit of a rest, but still, testing it. So it's nothing wild. It's just kind of maintaining and slowly building up to get into that fall training and really, ramp it up once we get there. But
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned injuries, and I think people don't realize like how mentally hard it is when you have an injury as an athlete. It's like to get through that, to see your teammates still competing and doing amazing and progressing. And you're like, I am just on hold and like going backwards. So talk to
mhm.
me a little bit about like the mental side of that and how you deal with that.
Yeah, it's a conversation I have with a lot of people, be it my family or people in business that I talk to. It's like injury is one of those things that it's hard to compare anything else in life to an injury when you're, a high level athlete, because it's just happens in an instant. You're done competing, that. And then immediately you get this PT plan, the surgery plan, and you know how long it's going to take. And
Mhm.
you're like, oh my gosh. Like the best thing I can think of, business goes bankrupt, and the whole scenario, the whole process it's going to take, how coming back from that is going to be very difficult. So it's kind of like that, where you just immediately know, oh my gosh, I have so much work ahead of me, and my season's done.
Yeah.
I got to cross out my goals, make new goals, completely shift. So I was really just okay with taking a step back and saying, all right, this is kind of my life right now. Like,
Hmm.
we're not going out, we're not doing a decathlon, running the 100, jumping. We're not doing that right now. We're getting on a hand bike and doing our cardio, and then doing our daily rehab, whether it be just slowly moving my ankle or whatever it was. But you just take baby steps and you follow the plan, you stick to the plan and keep telling yourself, like, this is just what has to happen if we want to get back to that. So it's just a lot of, it was just like any other goal. You set a goal, but you can have goals all you want, but it's the little habits that get you to that goal, the things you put in daily that get you there.
Hmm.
So it was always just telling myself, like, all right, we have to do these calf raises. We have to go see the chiropractor, get needling. We have to do this. We have to do that if we want to come back and medal at conference, help the team win as a conference,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. So it's just reminding yourself that there's a bigger goal. So.
Yeah, it's like creating a new routine. So during that time,
Mhm.
what were some of your goals when you were injured going through that? Were you like, I just want to do 20 calf raises today? Like, what were some of those goals that you created?
Yeah, I think my surgery, I think, was May 10th or May 11th. And I was like, all right, I want to be walking by June 15th, whatever it
Okay.
was. Just set a day. Like, I want to take my first steps. Got a little cat.
Yes.
Yeah. Uh, so it's like, I want to be walking by this day. And then same with like the rehab exercises, the calf raises. It's like, all right, I want to get to where I can do 30 on my own, non-assisted, with that
Hmm.
injured leg, 30 calf raises. And then measuring the degrees of the ankle. It's like, all right, we're at this amount of degrees. I want to gain 5 degrees by next week, whatever it
Hmm.
was. So just playing those games with myself day in, day out, week after week, just saying, all right, where can we advance just a little
Hmm.
bit. So it was constantly like, yeah, I have these big goals where it's like, I want to be back to my max numbers in the weight room. I want to be
Yeah.
back to my power testing numbers by November. But at the same time, I'm going to have these little weekly goals, like the calf raises, the walking, things like that. So,
I think the weekly goals are really helpful because sometimes when you plan, my cat is going crazy. Sometimes when you plan too far in advance and you don't hit that, you're kind of like let down. So if you have like
mm-hmm,
weekly goals that you're like, okay, this is definitely attainable, then it just helps
mm-hmm,
you mentally. So I
exactly.
think that's a
Exactly.
super, super good point. So one post that I saw you make recently was talking about like trying things out in your 20s. Right. So talk to me a little bit about that because this is like a huge struggle for people. And they're like, what do I do? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not
Yeah.
where I want to be yet, obviously, because it hasn't even been that long. We're all
Yeah.
so young still. So talk to me a little bit
Exactly.
about that and like figuring out like what you want to do with your life.
Yeah. So I make a point to try to connect with, the successful people I know, be it Annie Cooper on the podcast or some Virginia Tech donors that I know have done really well. And I just ask them, like, man, what did you do in your 20s? What could you tell somebody that's, starting out trying to figure out what they do in their 20s? It's like, dude, just try everything. Like your 30s and 40s, 50s, that's when you start to, narrow in and figure
Yeah.
things out. So for me, it's like, okay, I'm gonna keep doing track. I really like it. Went into grad school, kept doing track and field, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna get 2 master's degrees and do some projects and see how I like that. I'm not an academic type, so that was very new for me. It's like, all right, I'm gonna try and build my personal brand, see where that goes. I try and do brand deals.
Mhm.
I'm gonna build a business career. I got a job in consulting that's coming up. See how I like that. I'm gonna work with this NIL collective. I got this cool opportunity here. I'm gonna go try and sell door to door. I've been doing that a little bit all summer. And
Nice.
it's like, let's just try everything. Just
Yeah.
see one, the skills we can pull from it, what we can learn from it. But two, you're never gonna know if you like something or dislike it if you don't do it, which I'm sure you
Yes.
know all
Yes.
about.
Yes. Yes.
You have your own brands, you have your own products that you're offering,
Uh-huh.
you have your own personal brand. It's like, how would you know if this yoga product was gonna work out if
Yeah.
you didn't put it out there, if
Yeah.
you didn't try it? So I'm in the camp of it's my 20s. I'm going to do literally everything. Just try it, see if I like it.
Yeah.
Um,
So
mm,
I can totally relate to that. The only thing that I will say is it's so hard because I feel like everyone says you have to focus on one thing to be really successful at that. So like
mm,
what I run into personally is like if I'm doing 5 things, there none of them are really like to the full potential because it's like your
mm,
brain. So I'm sure you can relate now because you're like, okay, I got to do this. Like you're probably not sleeping and so busy because
yeah,
especially with
yeah,
training, it's like I have no
yes,
energy to even like think straight.
yes.
So how do you balance it all? Like how do you figure out like are you like okay, this one needs more time than this one. This one I enjoy more. I have more skills at this one. I'm going to focus on that more. Like how do
Hmm.
you navigate that?
Yeah. So I have my long term like 5 year plan that I check in weekly, and then I have my yearly goals, and then I have my week focuses, and then I have that daily itinerary that I'm always writing the night before, checking in on. And I try to structure my days where it's like I'm looking at my goals and I'm saying, okay, where are we putting forth effort to hit these goals? Every day I'll look at that. I'll say I have business career goals, I have track and field, personal brand, finances, all these different things. It's like, what tasks am I doing every day to hit these goals? So the way I structure my day now, it's like I work 8:30 to 5, around 5:30, and then I go straight to the gym. I get my training in. It's like 5:30 or 5:45 to 7, 7:15. Um, and then I leave there, cook dinner, do whatever, and then I spend the night just building my personal brand, be it making videos or doing a brand deal or going just studying a different path that I can take. I got a couple things in the works that I'm thinking about pursuing right now with the personal brand. So it's just very structured. It's very let's go get this done. Let's do
Mm-hmm.
this. Um, so it's really just being very intentional and building those habits of going through your day and knowing exactly what you got to do and
Mm-hmm.
then getting it done. But
Yeah. And it's
yeah,
hard too. Sorry, my internet's a little bit weird.
yeah,
It's hard too with building your personal brand because it's like you want to focus on the content side of things, but then you're like, is that getting me to like, is it doing anything? Because sometimes when it comes to building your personal brand, some stuff is not going to help and some stuff
right.
is. And I know that takes
Mhm.
up a lot of time. So do you spend a majority of time each day creating content or do you have like specific days where you focus on certain things?
Yeah, I have a content schedule that I have. So I like to put out 3 pieces of content across platforms every week, and I'll
Mm-hmm.
track that weekly. And I'm testing out this personal brand calendar that I want to use. So, Monday will be all right. I'm responding to DMs. I'm replying to tweets. I'm doing comments on Instagram posts. That's it. Tuesday, I'll be making, short, looking at those different options I want to pursue, things like that. So I'm kind of just, trying out a couple different things and just seeing what works.
Mm-hmm.
Just trying to find what's going to be the most efficient for me. But that's kind of what I'm toying with right now.
So talk to me about the personal brand options, just for people to be aware,
Mhm.
because I think people don't know like where you can take it. So talk to me
Mhm.
a little bit about that.
So, and these are why I have these conversations with you because you've been successful with it. I hop on the phone with some other influencers. I'm like, hey man, like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing besides just putting out this short form content? Because for me, like, I'm still in the early stages, and it's just been brand deal, brand deal, brand deal. Like, just working with the companies that you like, getting a little bit of payment off, UGC or
Yeah.
posting videos for them on your own platforms. And I'm like, okay, I've done this thing through college, like when NIL became a thing. It's like, I've tested this out. Now what do I want to do from here? So I'm getting on the phone. I know other creators are doing a lot of content consulting for companies, and they'll just, work this little side business they have. Some others, personal training. I know you do meal plans for people.
Yeah.
So just all these different routes. I'm like, you know how it is. Like you start to look into it and you go, oh my gosh, there's a whole nother world that I haven't even thought about. I didn't even know existed.
Mm-hmm.
So right now it's just me, looking into these different things and saying, or how can I give people value? How can I offer something that will help them? So it's just a lot of exploring, talking to people. And that's what I wanted to ask you a lot of questions about today. So like when you started on this journey, I'm sure it was similar for you. Like you're doing, the brand deal thing, just kind of figuring it out. And then you slowly find your own way into your own products. Like what did that look like for you when you were saying self-reflection of what am I good at? What can I offer people? Things like that.
Oh, I love this. I love this switch here. Okay.
Yeah.
So, so I
gotta learn.
I love it. So I started out in track and field and just athletics in general. I did gymnastics and competitive cheerleading as well. And then I did bodybuilding competitions while I was running track, which was not smart. I was injured constantly. I was like weight training 7 days a week, running, like it was ridiculous. So during that time, I started like an Instagram and I was getting like really lean. So people were asking me like, what do you do? Whatever. Can you send me a meal plan? Can you send me a diet? So I did it for free for a lot of people, which a lot of people say do it for free at first. I totally believe in that because you got to get feedback. Right. So I was getting a lot of good results where I was like, all right, I'm going to start selling this for like $20 or whatever. And I got my certifications. I started working for a personal training company. This was all while in college running competitions. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then so I started off training people. I loved it. People were getting great results. And then I started an Instagram to track my progress. I was doing like progress pictures of like the competition prep. And then I was running faster once I got the training down a little bit more with the lifting. And then people just started coming to me. So I started doing it in person and online. And then I was using resistance bands and yoga mats and stuff with all of my clients. Like I would bring it with me and then people would be like, where can I buy this stuff? I need to get some and I'll just bring my own. And I was like, and the resistance bands kept breaking. I was like, why am I telling them to buy all this stuff from another place when I could just like maybe make them somehow? So I got a designer. I got a trademark on a business name. And then I manufactured the products, designed them, and started selling them on my website and on Amazon and stuff like that. And then it just kind of evolved from there. And then now all the products are on GNC and with different retailers and stuff like that. So it just kind of happened like that. And then you just kind of build it and you're like, okay, do I want to push the products? Do I want to then create an app or do more social stuff? Like, or do I want to build a gym in person? Like, where do you want to focus it on? So that's kind of how that happened.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I have a question about the training. So in college, when you were in college, was it like you were helping write your plans? Like you were lifting on your own and things like that?
Yeah.
Like what did that look like?
Oh my God. So in college, I graduated like 4 years ago. Yeah. We did twice a week of lifting, but it was like, it was kind of BS. It was like not much. I always felt like I needed more. We had like our yoga day. I don't know if you guys had to do that. And then we had a swim practice like once every other week, which we had to do, which is awful. But I just always felt like I needed more and I was super into lifting and they didn't do much upper body. It was a lot of like weights or a lot of legs, and core, which is great. But I wanted to build my shoulders and my back and have it all be kind of like all work together. So I would go to the gym and I would go on bodybuilding.com and be like, well, what do I need to do? And I would just create my own plan. So I wanted to hit every muscle group and whatever they didn't do on our 2 lifting days, I would go to the gym and do it on my own. So I did get injured a lot, but then I kind of figured out like what my recovery needed to be to not be overtraining and what I needed to eat. And then I was able to develop a plan for myself. And then I started running way faster times.
Yeah. That's the best because you get that, real time trial and error, like see what works, see what doesn't. The recovery thing was like the biggest thing for me to realize. Like when you're young in college, you're like, oh, I'm bulletproof, I'm invincible, I can do whatever. And then you're like, wait a second, I got to eat right. I got to get, depending on your training, like 8 to 9 hours of sleep, like all this stuff.
Oh my God, the sleep
and
is
then
huge. Recovering. They're not built when you're like tearing them down, training them. That's like,
Mm-hmm.
they're built when you're resting. So I think people need to focus in on that because it's so important doing like your ice baths, your stretching, sleep, drinking
Mm-hmm.
water, all these things. Did you ever use like the space boots? We called them space boots.
Yeah, yeah. We had
God.
the Normatex, and then there was one, I think it was cupping with any movement, because we did cupping at, I was like, uh, with movement, hypervolt, I'd use that every single. We would do a lot of needling around the scars
Mm-hmm.
and around the area where a lot of the scar tissue built up, and it just helped with range of motion, open up the joint, everything. So really love that. Big fan of that.
How much time do you spend on recovery each day?
Each day, probably recently I've been doing it, directly after my workouts. So that's like my ankle rehab, my ankle stretches, my hypervolt,
Mm-hmm.
and that'll typically take 20, 25 minutes. And then Wednesdays is my recovery day, like between workouts. And I'll go in to the sauna and ice bath. I'll do a contrast and do my rehab and stuff. Then that'll take a little longer. That's
Mm-hmm.
probably about a 45-minute to an hour session.
Nice.
And if you include sleep with recovery, it's a
How do you
lot
have
more
time for
time.
anything else? It's like I just
I
need to
know.
sleep for the rest
I
of the
know.
day. Oh, that's the hard part.
Exactly.
Is like if you're an
Mhm.
athlete and you work out, the time that you have to do everything else is so limited. And you probably, I don't know if you even have time for a social life, maybe the weekends. But that's the other
Yeah,
side. It's like
it's
how
been very limited recently.
it's hard too, because like right now you feel like I want to go like party and have fun or travel or whatever because you're
Right.
young. But it's like I
Mhm.
also want to like build something. So like
Yeah.
do you need to
Yeah,
like
it's
alternate
that
weekends?
yeah, it's that weird balance where you're like, I want to go, and it was that weird thing when my job start date got pushed back, and people are like, "Oh, dude, this is amazing! Like, take this time off, go travel, go do this." And I'm like, "Dude, if I'm dormant, like, I can't think straight. Like, especially during COVID, when COVID hit, I was like, what am I supposed to do?
No, that's
Like,
how I am too.
yeah, exactly.
I cannot sit still. So now that you
Yeah.
have all these things that you're working on, what do you think you want to go towards? Because you said you have a 5-year plan. Like what are
Mm-hmm.
you thinking is kind of leading the way?
I can say something right now, and it'll probably be
It's gonna change.
completely different when I
Yeah.
go back and look at this, 3 years down the road. But I I kind of see myself pursuing the business career and kind of keeping going in consulting or wherever, that takes me down the road. And I have a few different like industries and areas that I would like to work in. And I think I want to build my brand around, having a career that you've kind of always been interested in, you've always wanted, and then also being able to do the things on the side, like actually making time for those things. So for me personally, it's training for the pole vault. I love it. It keeps me in shape. It keeps me healthy. It's something to work towards. And then just building something on the side, like your personal brand. So I want to use the platform to kind of communicate to people that you can do what you want in your career and have things on the side that you're proud of, you can set goals with, and all that kind of stuff. So I see myself kind of, shifting towards something like that in the future. That would be ideal for me, I guess.
Are
But
you big on having a team? Like, do you want to have a team or do you want to do a lot of this kind of solo at first?
you mean a team as in like
Like
for
build
training and
like building a team for your personal brand. Like if you do like the business side of things, do you see yourself
mm,
having like a ton of employees and all this stuff, or do you want to kind of focus on your own at first?
down the road, yes.
Mm.
For now, I kind of want to keep it like as lean as possible and still
Yeah.
be, putting out the content and things like that. But in the future, I would absolutely love to have, cameraman, editor, things like that, and really be able to take that, delegate it, and then put my focus into things I know that are going to, have a much bigger payoff in the end. So down the road, I could definitely see myself going that route. But have you started to shift a little towards that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
The editing, I mean, I edit like my like Instagram stuff, short stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
anything else like promotional videos or YouTube, I'll send it to an editor. And
Mm-hmm.
then I usually have someone help me with like filming certain things like the
Nice.
podcast or whatever. So that is so helpful because it takes so much
Yeah.
time to figure out how to edit. And if you're not
Yeah.
good at something, it's so much better to pay someone else to do it.
It was so
Save
much
you
trial and
time.
error, like just sitting there and, you know, which is good when you're in school because you have a little bit more free time, but you just like testing these apps, trying it out over and over and over and over. Oh my gosh.
It's
crazy.
cool to learn, but at a certain point, it's like you got to focus on what you're really good at, and then everyone else can do the rest.
Right.
There can be some sort of maybe like trade-off at first, and then you can pay them eventually, or however you work that out. But it's so helpful to do it that way.
So what's been your, like, I guess you're going hard, you're doing this solo, you're trying to figure it out. What's been your, oh, I'm good at this, I need to focus on this? Like, is it the relationships with people? Is it like the podcast?
Yeah.
Like, what is that?
It's so interesting to think about that, because I'm like, I was bringing it down to like the training, right? Or like coaching people. I'm like, why do they stick with me? Like, what makes it? And it's how I communicate with them. Like I'm really personal with them. It's like, it's fun. I don't make the training like super like boring, and like I make it fun. I talk to them. So definitely like talking with people. I love being on camera and talking, not just being like doing like waves and like the motions or whatever. I like communicating. So I think that's definitely a strength. And then just throwing like your personality in it. But I also love the business side of things, like sales and, stuff like that. But anything like creating websites or editing things, I don't think that I'm very good at. So that's when I start to delegate, and I'm like, you can do this, or writing emails, whatever that is. So that's been super helpful to figure out like, which one should I focus on?
Right. That's interesting.
Yeah. But it all takes time, and then figuring out like the one or two things that you want to really hone in on and go that route.
Yeah. Exactly. Back to the trying everything.
Yes. All right. So where can they find you on social media if they want to follow along?
Yeah. All my handles are at Jake_Spotswood. Check out the TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, everything. So
Threads. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm excited to see more, and thanks for being on the podcast.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.